Hi everyone, I'm Sleepless Scientist tonight. We're walking through a forest you've never seen, where the air hums with buzzing insects as long as your arm and shadows stretch out across fern-covered ground like they're watching you. Somewhere above, a fat orange moon watches back. This isn't a dream. Well, not yet. You're about to take a long, sleepy stroll through time all the way back to when dinosaurs ruled the earth, and maybe dreamed under the stars, just like you. You'll be wandering beside the enormous, the weird, and the sleepless. And the further we go, the stranger it gets, until suddenly you might realize you're not entirely sure whether you're dreaming now or just remembering the dreams of something that went extinct 66 million years ago. But careful, you probably won't survive this. One wrong step and a tail the size of a tree trunk might swing you into the next dimension. Or a curious little lizard with poisoned breath might think your toes look crunchy. But no worries, because tonight, none of this is real. Probably. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you. Let me know in the comments below. I'm always curious where these quiet little science stories are drifting to, and if this video helped you while you were there. Now relax, take a deep breath, and join me gently on this evening's journey. The world was new once, and noisy. You find yourself barefoot on soil that squishes like warm moss underfoot. It's late evening and the sun is dying behind a mess of smoky orange clouds. The forest is older than your imagination. Tall horsetails sway above your head and cycads rustle with things that slither. There's no bird song here, just the occasional distant groan, like a cello being stepped on. You look up. A dinosaur, smallish, maybe the size of a pony, is stretching its long neck toward the nearest tree. It's called Coelophysis, and it's been dead for 200 million years. But right now, it yawns. That's right, yawns. A real, slow, tongue-curled, eyeball-scrunching dinosaur yawn. Because even ancient reptiles had to sleep. Or at least, rest. Scientists still debate how much sleep early dinosaurs actually needed, and whether they conked out cold like a croc, or snoozed lightly like a chicken. But we know this much: they couldn't keep moving forever. And just like you, they had to find the right spot. You follow the Coelophysis deeper into the forest. It settles into a shady spot near a warm rock and tucks in its feet. Its eyes don't close all the way. There's a translucent membrane like a built-in curtain. You squint to see if it's dreaming. Nothing yet. There's a theory, just a theory, that the earliest dinosaurs took cues from the reptiles that came before them. Crocodilians today often doze with their snouts resting on riverbanks, one eye watching one half of the brain alert. Maybe the first dinosaurs slept the same way, half here, half somewhere else. And you're fully here. In fact, a dragonfly the size of a tennis racket just landed on your knee. You bat it away and it leaves behind a smear of yellow goo. This forest is alive in ways that feel more insect than dream. You hear rustling behind you, something heavy and clumsy, and you dive behind a log just in time to see a pair of towering legs stomp past. That's Plateosaurus. Herbivore. Big snorer, probably. Judging by the vibrations it leaves behind, you imagine it must sound like a freight train with sleep apnea. The creature vanishes into the dusk and you're left in a patch of glowing mushrooms. Odd fact, some fungi really do glow, a phenomenon called bioluminescence. In the Triassic, that glow might have helped lure insects, or even given some creatures natural nightlights. Imagine being a dinosaur hatchling, trying to fall asleep next to your siblings' glowing poop. Comforting in a weird way. You lean against a tree and yawn yourself. You didn't think time travel would be this relaxing. The thing is, sleep isn't universal. Some creatures barely sleep at all. Sharks keep moving. Giraffes only sleep for a few minutes at a time. And we don't know exactly where dinosaurs fit on that scale. Some paleontologists argue that smaller bird-like dinosaurs may have napped frequently, while larger species probably had segmented sleep cycles drifting off during the safest, darkest hours. But safety was relative. Every rustle in the bushes could mean something wanted a bite of you. Or your dreams. You hear a low croaking sound, like a mix between a frog and a tuba. From the edge of the clearing, a group of small dinosaurs with weird crests on their heads are flopping down in a circle. Their heads bob in a kind of rhythm. It looks like a group nap. Scientists think that some species may have slept communally, much like modern birds, in rookeries, or penguins, huddled together in Antarctica. Warmth protection, shared snoozing dreams of better bugs to eat tomorrow. You sit cross-legged and listen. The sounds are foreign, but strangely comforting. Clicking, chirping a distant thrum in the earth like a heartbeat. You're not sure how long you stay like that. Eventually the sky deepens. Stars, alien ones, dot the heavens. They twinkle a little too fast, maybe due to atmospheric dust, or maybe because your eyes are starting to drift shut. One last thought crosses your mind before sleep tickles the edges of your vision. What did dinosaurs dream about? Did they dream at all, or were their nights filled with instincts too ancient for REM? You reach out toward the yawning Coelophysis again. It snorts softly in its sleep and pulls its tail tighter against its body. And as your own breath slows your mind, floating somewhere between science and dreamland, you whisper something only the dinosaurs can hear. You wake slowly the way you do when a dream is just too big to leave all at once. You're lying on something massive and warm, something breathing. No, really beneath your back, a rhythmic rise and fall. You roll over groggily and your hand lands on a skin texture somewhere between leather and scaled marble. You squint up, and there it is. Your bed tonight is a sauropod, a real one of the long-necked titans of the Jurassic. This one's a Camarasaurus, maybe 20 tons of sleepy vegetarian muscle. Its neck is curled like a spiraling river tail looped through the undergrowth, like a lazy python. You probably shouldn't be this close. You're definitely not insured for this. But the dinosaur is snoring softly. You feel it through your ribs. And that's when it hits you, this thing is alive, yes, but also heavy. Gravity pulls on it the same way it pulls on you, except it has to manage that pressure over 60 feet of vertebrae and a brain the size of a coconut, trying to tell its tail what to do. How did it ever lie down to sleep without dying? Scientists still debate this. Large sauropods may have rested, standing up, or knelt, like camels. Some think they could sprawl out flat, but if they did, getting up again may have taken actual teamwork or a small miracle. You carefully sit up. You're about the size of its nostril. If it wakes up, you'll be a sneeze snack. The forest opens wider now, and you spot more of these gentle giants' tails swinging like pendulums, heads gently bobbing in their half-sleep trances. Some are awake, eyes glazed over, chewing whatever ancient version of celery passed for breakfast. Others seem elsewhere. You follow a faint trail worn into the earth, curved from millions of heavy feet. And that's when it really sinks in. You're sharing the earth with giants, not metaphorical giants, not historical figures. Real colossal animals who never once worried about car insurance or filtered water or taxes. Just sun-food mating and somewhere in that primal loop rest. Odd fact, some sauropods had air sacs inside their bones, literal hollows inside their skeletons that made them lighter, more efficient, and probably able to sleep without collapsing under their own weight. Basically, they were walking hot air balloons wrapped in muscles. And you're standing in the middle of a prehistoric field of lungs. You turn your eyes upward, following the curve of a neck, reaching toward the clouds. The creature blinks slowly. You blink back. For a moment there's a strange connection, one that bypasses 150 million years of extinction and Wi-Fi. Maybe, just maybe, it sees you as a bug. Or maybe just as a soft thing, not dangerous, not edible. Then it turns its head and lets out a long, low rumble, like a distant cello underwater. You think it might be saying good night. Another debate among paleontologists whether dinosaurs vocalized like birds, reptiles, or something totally different. Did sauropods use low-frequency calls to locate their herds over long distances, or did they hum to each other as they settled down for the night? It's not hard to imagine these giants humming themselves to sleep like whales on land. A herd lullaby drifting through the dark. You pass under the swaying tails of a dozen more. Every now and then one flicks in its sleep, knocking trees sideways like daisies. You dodge and roll, with style okay, more like a half-trip, and land in a patch of soft moss. It smells like damp sugar and beetle spit. Above you, a smaller creature scurries through the branches, Dinosaurs maybe. Quick-footed, nervous, possibly just looking for a place to nap, without becoming someone else's snack. Not every dinosaur lived huge. Some were rabbit-sized, some chicken-sized, and all of them had to find their own way to sleep, curled in holes, balanced on branches, even under the bellies of bigger herbivores. Safety wasn't a guarantee. It was a strategy. You settle into the moss and watch as fireflies or some ancient analogue blink lazily in the trees. And you wonder what would sleeping feel like if your heart beat only once every minute. If your breath moved entire ferns with each exhale. If your eyelids were a foot wide and closed slower than you could blink. Sleep must have felt deeper, longer, stranger. And just as you're about to drift again, you hear a crunch. Your head jerks up. Another creature is here. Allosaurus. This one's different. 2 tons of teeth, claws, and bad decisions. It walks like it owns the place, even though it probably hasn't paid rent in 30 million years. It's not hunting, not now, but it's not sleeping either. Some dinosaurs didn't rest like the others. Some stayed up all night, eyes adapted to the dark tracking motion by moonlight. Scientists still debate how many dinosaurs were nocturnal. We have clues like eye socket size, fossil pupil shapes, and comparison with modern birds and reptiles. But we're still guessing in the dark. You duck behind a log as the Allosaurus passes, sniffing the wind. It pauses. You hold your breath. Then with a final snort, it disappears into the night. You stay frozen, the heart thudding. Not everyone in this world sleeps safely. Not everyone sleeps at all. Though somehow they all survived long enough to leave footprints, fossils, questions, and dreams you can only glimpse by sneaking into their bedtime like this. You crawl back to the moss, curl up next to the trunk of a tree, older than language, and let your breathing match the rhythm of the distant sauropod snores. If you're lucky, maybe you'll grow 10 feet in your sleep tonight. The earth feels different tonight. Not just old connected. You stretch out on a high cliff overlooking a vast, uninterrupted plain that seems to fold into itself at the edges. No continents here. No separation of Africa, Asia, or the Americas. Just one supercontinent, Pangaea. A single skin stretched across the planet, cracked like old leather. The wind brushes past your face like it's trying to tell you a story in a language made of dust. You squint at the horizon and watch as a herd of Massospondylus drifts lazily across the open plain legs, like pistons' heads, bobbing with the rhythm of a species that has somewhere to be eventually. They're migrating, and tonight you're following. But before you stand up, you pause, because something feels different about the sky too. The stars. They're not your stars. The constellations are scrambled, like the universe shook up a box of celestial cereal and dumped it out at random. It makes you feel tiny and sleepy, and maybe a little homesick for a world that won't exist for another 100 million years. You whisper, "Where even are we?" and Pangaea doesn't answer. It just creaks beneath you like an ancient ship. As you walk, you begin to feel something strange. Your steps are longer, lighter, your breath easier. That's not a mistake. Back then, oxygen levels were higher. In some periods of the Mesozoic, up to 35% compared to today's 21%. Lungs were happier, fires were scarier, and creatures might have slept deeper, dreamt longer, floated in something like a trance. Imagine your dreams stretched out, woven through the atmosphere like silk. And imagine this, maybe the shape of the land shaped the dreams. Scientists still debate the psychological effects of Pangaea. No mountains between you and a storm. No oceans to divide ecosystems. One interconnected terrain with wind that carried scents for miles, and predators that learned your patterns across half a continent. Did dinosaurs migrate thousands of miles in a year? Or was their movement more like a wandering meditation? No end in sight, no calendar, just the slow pull of instinct. You step into a low valley dotted with sleeping animals. A few Herrerasaurus crouch in the shadows of conifers, their chests rising and falling. You tiptoe past, careful not to make a sound. You don't want to wake a dinosaur in REM. But here's the twist, we don't know if they even had it. REM sleep. Rapid eye movement is associated with dreaming in humans and some animals. Birds have it. So do crocodiles, sort of. But do reptiles dream the way you do? That's still up in the air. Some scientists argue that dreams evolved as a way to rehearse danger, simulate survival. If that's true, then dinosaurs might have dreamt of running, fighting, eating, escaping. You imagine a stegosaurus twitching in its sleep tail spikes, flexing with remembered battles. What do herbivores dream about? Probably not taxes. You kneel near a fossilized streambed that has no fossils yet. It's just a normal river now crawling lazily under starlight. But someday, when Pangaea splits, when seas rise, when continents drift, like lost ships into strange orbits, this stream might freeze into stone. Its story sealed into layers. Odd fact, some fossilized riverbeds have been found with traces of ripple marks, raindrop impressions, and even, yes, dinosaur tracks, overlapping in lazy spirals like the creatures paused mid-migration, just to lie down for a bit. You lie down too. Your back sinks into the earth, like it remembers you. The night presses in like a thick velvet blanket. And you wonder, did Pangaea feel unified to the dinosaurs? Or did it just feel endless? The migrations never stopped. The nights stretched forever. And sleep. Maybe it didn't come with the comfort of knowing where you were, but with the certainty that the land beneath you was the same land ahead. That might be what made sleep possible in the age of Pangea predictability, until it all started to break. You shift on the dirt. The ground doesn't shake, but in your mind you feel the first rumbles. The supercontinent will fracture. Not tonight. Not even in 100,000 nights. But eventually the Earth will splinter. And that matters. Because when the continents drift apart, sleep gets complicated. Now there are seasons, jet streams, cold nights, and predator corridors. Creatures that used to live side by side wake up one morning and find the ocean between them. Some species adapt. Some vanish. Some just keep dreaming. The herd of Massospondylus moves past you again, silent now, half asleep on the march.
Are they tired? Or just in something like sleepwalking, as instinct carries their limbs, while the mind drifts elsewhere? There's a theory still fringe, but strangely poetic, that some dinosaurs may have entered states of unihemispheric sleep during migration, like dolphins. One brain hemisphere rests, while the other remains alert. It's never been confirmed for dinosaurs, but wouldn't that make sense? Half dreaming, half moving. The body goes on autopilot while the mind swims through something strange. Like what you're doing now. You close your eyes again just for a second. The breeze brushes your face warm and ancient. You feel the dirt in your hands, the footprints of creatures bigger than your imagination. And just as your mind starts to drift again, you murmur, "Don't forget me." And in the silence, Pangea almost seems to sigh. Something taps your shoulder. Not gently. It's a beak. You jolt, upright heart racing, then freeze as two enormous amber eyes stare right into yours. A Troodon, feathered alert and clearly displeased that you're in its favourite nap spot. It chirps once more, irritated than aggressive, and hops back onto a crooked tree branch overhead, where it curls its toes, ruffles its feathers, and tucks its head beneath one wing. And just like that, it's asleep. Again. You're stunned. This tiny dino, half the size of a turkey and twice as smug, just switched from full alert mode to dream state in less than a minute. Did you just witness a prehistoric power nap? Probably. Because while no one knows exactly how dinosaurs slept, many scientists believe some, especially the bird-like ones, slept more like birds than reptiles. That means short bursts, quick recovery, rapid eye movement. Yes, REM. Possibly. Scientists still debate whether dinosaurs experience true REM sleep. It's hard to prove from fossils. Obviously, you can't exactly ask a skeleton how rested it feels. But here's the catch: many birds today have REM, and they evolved directly from theropod dinosaurs. That makes Troodon one of your best suspects for a prehistoric dreamer. You lie back again watching as it tucks itself into an impossibly fluffy ball of proto-feathers. The branch sways slightly. The dino twitches. One leg lifts. Is it dreaming, maybe?
There's a theory that REM evolved not just for memory consolidation, but for simulating danger. In other words, practice. Your brain runs through threats, social encounters, even weird imaginary versions of them, so you're ready when you wake up. So if Troodon is dreaming, maybe it's practicing something. Maybe it's dreaming about you. You shiver. Odd fact: in 2004, fossil beds in China revealed dinosaur skeletons preserved in sleeping postures nearly identical to modern birds. Head under wing, body curled, tail wrapped. The resemblance is so strong it's eerie. Evolution didn't just borrow the idea, it kept the whole design. Your gaze drifts to another branch. There's a second Troodon up there already sleeping, and another on a lower branch, gently bobbing like a balloon tied to a twig. A flock of sleepers. You didn't expect to find this many dinosaurs mid-nap. You were ready for roars fights and chases, not a prehistoric sleepover. But here's the thing. Predators, especially smaller ones, need sleep too. In fact, they often need more of it to consolidate the intense brainwork of stalking, tracking, outsmarting prey. Even modern cats, your local lion, or your house tabby sleep more than most animals. So perhaps these little killers are curled up in REM loops, dreaming about faster prey, smarter ambushes, or the perfect branch to call home. You reach up slowly and touch the bark of the tree. It's spongy and warm, like touching the armrest of a lizard-shaped couch. And as you do, the entire canopy shimmers, slightly leaves, coated in dew that glows faintly in the moonlight. The drowsy stillness is broken only by the occasional croak from one of the sleepers. You think back to human dreams, how strange they are, how full of fragments and echoes and nonsense that somehow feels meaningful. Would a dinosaur's dream be as surreal? Would they imagine flying before flight? Would they dream in colour? Scientists still aren't even sure if we all dream in colour. So what hope do we have of decoding the dreams of the Mesozoic? Still you imagine it a tiny Troodon leaping over imaginary rivers, chasing stars that blink too fast, pecking at a lizard made of smoke. Its claws twitch, once, then settle. You yawn. It's contagious. And then you notice something odd. There's a fourth one now lower on the ground, eyes half open. It's not asleep. Not exactly. Its head droops slowly, then jerks up. Droops again. Then the eyes close, but the legs stay stiff. Tail still swaying in rhythm. Sleepwalking. Possibly. Or perhaps a version of microsleep. Tiny fragments of rest that sneak in between wakefulness. Modern birds and reptiles do this all the time. Even humans in extreme exhaustion enter seconds-long dream bursts without even realizing. Which means technically you've already started dreaming again too. Even if you're still standing up, you settle beside the base of the tree and breathe in the forest's scent, like pine tar and old tea. The warmth of nearby bodies. The gentle clicking of dreams unfolding in ancient brains. You whisper to the Troodon above you. What are you seeing? And for just a second, you feel it. Something like a projection, not visual, not sound, just the sensation of running, of leaping, of wind slicing past feathers not yet meant for flight. Are you inside its dream? Or just imagining what it would be like to dream with a brain, not quite a bird, not quite a lizard, but something perfectly in between? It doesn't matter, because in this strange patch of forest, you're not awake like before, and not dreaming like normal. You're something else. You're part of a world that dreamt long before humans existed. A world that might still be dreaming now. You're not sure what woke you, but your body knows. Before your mind can catch up, you're upright and frozen, heart thudding, breath shallow, every nerve buzzing like a live wire. Something's moving out there. You squint into the prehistoric dark. At first, there's nothing but the shifting silhouette of ferns and a few lazy insects glowing dimly like falling embers. Then just a glimmer, a pair of eyeshine reflections. Yellow, low to the ground, focused. You've seen that look before. It's the kind predators have, the kind that doesn't blink. Then you hear it a crunch, a step, then another, and now you see it a velociraptor. Smaller than the movies made you think sure, but lean-feathered and humming with intent. Not frantic, not aggressive, just awake and hungry. It doesn't see you yet, which is good news. You slowly lower your body behind a bush that smells suspiciously like sweaty pineapple. You watch. The raptor moves silently, head low, tail balancing like a tightrope walker. It's stalking a small mammal, something rodenty and prehistoric that's clearly made some poor life decisions. And it's all happening under moonlight. You suddenly realize this is a night hunter, which raises a question: how many dinosaurs hunted at night? Turns out, maybe a lot more than we used to think. There's a growing body of evidence based on fossilized eye structures, especially the scleral rings, suggesting that some dinosaurs had incredible night vision. In fact, one paper examined the ring structure of Velociraptor and concluded it likely had excellent low-light vision. Scientists still debate whether this trait was universal among predators or limited to specific species adapted to desert nights or dense forest gloom. But you don't need a peer-reviewed study right now. You just need to not sneeze. Odd fact, raptors may have had feathers for more than just insulation. Some theories suggest they were part of visual signaling even at night. Imagine stalking prey in the moonlight with black and white banded tail feathers shimmering behind you, like wearing reflective stripes to flex on your victims. You glance up through the canopy. The moon is bright, but not your moon. It's closer, bigger. The air is thicker too, the way it always seems in dreams or on planets where the rules are just slightly off. The raptor freezes. Its eyes flick toward you, no through you. You dare not move. Your body remembers being prey even if your brain's still used to pizza delivery. But then, like a shadow on rails, the predator darts sideways, pounces, and vanishes into the underbrush. The mammal screams, briefly, then silence. A few moments later, you hear the sound of bones being cracked delicately, like someone eating celery in church. You exhale slowly. In the silence, you begin to realize something deeper. Sleep in a world like this wasn't just about rest. It was about risk. Every nap was a gamble. Every dream could be your last. So nocturnal predators shape the sleep cycles of everyone else. When to nap, where to hide, how to go completely motionless when danger brushed past. Even today, modern prey animals exhibit hypervigilant sleep. Horses sleep standing. Deer snap awake at the tiniest sound. Birds, too, have evolved the ability to sleep with one eye open, literally shutting down one half of their brain at a time. So, did dinosaurs do the same? There's no definitive fossil of a dino with half a brain clocked out. But given their connection to birds and reptiles, some scientists speculate that unihemispheric slow-wave sleep may have existed in at least some species, especially those vulnerable to night terrors like the raptor you just watched. You lie back down. Carefully. A glowing beetle crawls across your foot. You don't flick it off. Instead, you watch the shadows dance across the forest. You realize that for millions of years, night was owned by creatures whose eyes didn't fear the dark, whose claws and teeth thrived in it. And everyone else, the gentle grazers, the early mammals, even the bugs, had to find ways to dream around them. Maybe they evolved dreams as rehearsals for escape. Maybe sleep itself became a battlefield, a careful compromise between biology and survival. Some creatures evolved camouflage naps, others dug burrows. A few grew armor, but all of them at one point or another had to close their eyes. And that's when the raptors came. You wonder what they dreamed of. Dominance, endless chases. Or maybe in some ironic twist of biology, even raptors dreamed of being chased. not by prey, but by their own instincts, by the thing that told them to always keep hunting. The forest has gone still again. The stars above seem quieter. You can almost hear the earth exhale. You tuck yourself into a crevice between two tree roots, safe, mostly. And just as your eyes begin to close again, you whisper a quiet thank you to the raptor, wherever it's gone, for letting you keep dreaming. You wake up before the sky does. It's not quite dawn, but the horizon is beginning to flirt with the idea. A smear of indigo, a faint chirp. The forest around you hums, not with noise, but with anticipation. And you feel it too, something in your bones aligning, like you're sinking to a rhythm you didn't know was there. You sit up slowly, brushing off a sleeping beetle from your chest. It scurries away, annoyed, probably dreaming of better real estate. As your eyes adjust, you notice something curious all around you. Dinosaurs are beginning to stir. Some stretch their legs like cats. Others blink, shake their heads, puff out feathers. None of them needed alarms. They just knew. Welcome to the strange world of circadian rhythms, the internal body clocks that govern sleep, wakefulness, hunger temperature, and your deeply flawed decision to check your phone at 2 a.m. Yes, even dinosaurs likely had them. The science of ancient sleep cycles is tricky. Bones don't fossilize behavior, but we can make educated guesses. Modern reptiles, birds, and mammals all have built-in clocks that help regulate their day-night cycles. It stands to reason dinosaurs did too. Scientists still debate how tightly those rhythms were wired into different species. Were some rigid, 12-hour schedulers? Or did others operate like moody teenagers, sleeping in and ignoring the sun? You lean back and close your eyes again briefly, just to test your own inner clock. Nope. You're definitely still in Cretaceous time. A faint rustle behind you catches your attention. It's a Psittacosaurus, a squat, beaked herbivore with a punk rock tail of bristles and the attitude of someone who just wants breakfast. You watch as it waddles toward a patch of ferns, gnaws contentedly, and poops with complete conviction. It then steps exactly 3 paces away and lays down for what can only be described as a digestive nap. You smile. Same buddy. Odd fact, studies of growth rings in dinosaur bones like the rings in trees suggest some species had seasonal growth cycles. That implies periods of rest possibly tied to longer rhythms than just the 24-hour circadian loop. Think hibernation, or maybe Cretaceous versions of seasonal depression naps. Another Psittacosaurus joins the first flopping down nearby. They both exhale in unison, eyes half closed, in what seems suspiciously like a synchronized siesta. Could they be entrained to each other's rhythms? That's the technical term, entrainment. It's when one organism's internal clock syncs to another's, like fireflies blinking in perfect time, or roommates who gradually start sleeping and waking together without realizing it. It happens in humans. It probably happened in dinosaurs. And it makes you wonder how much of sleep is truly personal and how much is social. Did herds of iguanodon doze in waves? Did juvenile triceratops mimic their parents' rest patterns? Could predators sense when prey were most vulnerable by learning the rhythm of their species? Imagine not just hunting the body, but the schedule. You yawn. Loudly. A small flock of Confuciusornis primitive birds with long tail feathers dart overhead, screeching at you like alarm clocks with wings. And suddenly the forest is alive again. Everything's waking in waves. There's a rhythm to it, a pulse. It isn't loud, but it's insistent. Even the light plays along, sifting down through the trees in golden stripes. You stand and stretch. Your spine pops. T-Rexes didn't have to deal with this probably. And that's when you feel it most clearly. The day has begun. Not because the sun told you, but because your body shifted.
Your own internal clock reset itself to the tempo of this prehistoric world. This raises another mystery. How plastic were dinosaur clocks? Modern animals can shift their rhythms based on environment. Take humans, our circadian rhythms adjust slowly to jet lag, light pollution, shift work, or time zones. But dinosaurs didn't have artificial light. They had volcanoes, weather patterns, and planet-wide extinction events.
So what happened to their rhythms when an eclipse lasted for weeks, when asteroid dust blocked out the sun? Some researchers believe the creatures that survived, birds, crocodilians, and mammals, may have been those whose internal clocks could adapt. Dinosaurs whose sleep and activity schedules were too rigid, they may have slept through their chance to evolve. You look down at your feet.
There's a long trail of tracks, fresh ones left by a hadrosaur, the duck-billed dino that wandered through while you were sleeping. It walked in a straight line, like it knew exactly where it needed to be. Maybe its body told it, now. Now is the time to go. Maybe sleep wasn't just recovery. Maybe it was timing. You sit on a fallen log, smooth, sun-warmed, and close your eyes again. Not to sleep this time, just to feel the pulse. There it is, a thrum, deep beneath the surface.
In the earth, in the wind, in the bones of this place. Your body, even in this borrowed timeline, is starting to understand it. And when you open your eyes again, you don't check a watch. You just know it's time to move. The dinosaurs are already ahead of you. You've followed the hadrosaur tracks into a pocket of dense forest now, where the canopy hangs low, like it's trying to listen in. Ferns curl at your ankles, and the air smells like cinnamon whetstone, and something else. Something alive. Ahead you hear soft peeps, high-pitched and constant. At first it sounds like birdsong, but it's too rhythmic, almost musical. You step forward carefully, brushing a branch aside, and freeze.
There in a clearing, lit by shafts of dappled sunlight, is a nest. No, not a nest, the nest. A swirl of soft leaves, twigs, feathers, and prehistoric fluff packed into a circular bowl. At the centre, baby dinosaurs, possibly oviraptors, round a downy blinking, twitching in their sleep. And nestled over them, wings splayed like a sleepy umbrella, is their parent. Feathered, massive-eyed, half asleep and completely still. The dinosaur doesn't react to your presence.
It just lifts its head slightly, fluffs its feathers, and exhales with the weight of a parent who hasn't had 8 hours of sleep in weeks. You inch closer and sit nearby, not wanting to disturb the scene. Here's the thing. Dinosaurs with feathers weren't just the ancestors of birds. They were part of one of the most extraordinary behavioural shifts in evolutionary history, parental warmth.
And maybe snuggles. Odd fact, fossil discoveries in Mongolia have captured adult oviraptors, curled protectively over clutches of eggs' wings, stretched in what looks uncannily like a brooding posture. If true, these dinosaurs weren't just laying eggs and leaving. They were staying, shielding, and possibly even warming their young. That requires body heat, which means endothermy, warm-bloodedness, or something close to it. Scientists still debate whether all dinosaurs were warm-blooded.
Some were likely mesothermic, somewhere between cold-blooded reptiles and warm-blooded mammals. But those with feathers, they were almost certainly using insulation to conserve heat, especially at night. Which also means sleeping together wasn't just sweet. It was survival. You look back at the parent dino again. Its eyes are half-lidded, Its body rises and falls with slow, even breaths. And those tiny ones, they twitch and peep in their sleep, huddling closer with each exhale.
And that right there is probably the oldest recorded instance of a group nap. You scoot slightly closer the way you would near a campfire on a cold night. The heat coming off the feathered adult is real, tangible, a prehistoric space heater covered in dino fuzz. You watch a chick stretch its tiny arm wing, claw whatever, and nuzzle back into the down. A miniature snuggle. And just like that, the image hits you even 80 million years ago. Sleep wasn't always solitary. It wasn't always dangerous. Sometimes it was shared. There's a theory that communal sleeping developed not just for warmth, but for emotional safety. Among mammals, birds, and even some reptiles, resting in groups creates security, stability, and bonding. Was it the same for dinosaurs? Did they form emotional attachments strong enough to shape how they slept? We'll never know for sure, but it makes sense. After all, sleep is when you're at your most vulnerable. And trust, if it existed, would show up most clearly at bedtime. You lie back in the moss and watch a few fluffy feathers drift down like snow. You think about your own childhood naps, the warmth of a blanket, the distant hum of a parent in the next room, the sense that you were held even when you were alone. Maybe that feeling is older than we think. You glance at the nest again. The adult opens one eye, looks at you, then closes it. Apparently, you're not a threat.
Or maybe you're boring. Either way, you've been accepted into the naptime perimeter. Congratulations. You inhale. The air here is thicker, richer. Your lungs feel stretched and satisfied, like you've just had soup and a hug. Heh, you wonder what dreams live in the minds of those chicks. Running, flying, getting the best worm, or maybe something softer, simpler, just the memory of warmth, of feathers, of the heartbeat of the parent above them.
Maybe sleep for them is just another way to stay close. One more thing, the word snuggle feels ridiculously modern in this place. But it's not. The behavior is ancient. The instinct to touch, to share heat, to feel safe beside another heartbeat that has been around far longer than we have. Feathers weren't just evolutionary bling. They were comfort, a blanket, a security system, a sleep aid. And maybe when the asteroid came, it wasn't just brains and speed that helped birds survive. Maybe it was the instinct to huddle, to rest together, to close your eyes in the dark and know you weren't alone. You exhale one last time and let your head fall back into the moss. Your body relaxes into the earth, and somewhere nearby a baby dino dreams beside a parent who will not move until the sun is high. You wake to a world without voices. Not silent exactly, but a world where language hasn't happened yet, where no creature will ever say goodnight, but everyone seems to understand it. You lie still. You listen. The soundscape of this ancient place is like no night you've known. Insects chirp in patterns that seem almost intentional, mathematical. Somewhere distant, a guttural groan echoes from a swamp, followed by a cascading splash that might be bath time or dinner time, or a very clumsy sauropod. And beneath it all the soft hiss of wind through fern fronds, the occasional rustle of feathers, the thump of something enormous lying down. This isn't noise, it's music, not the kind with instruments, the kind made by bodies, by breath, by sleep. You sit up slowly, half expecting to be surrounded by snoring dinosaurs, but instead you find yourself at the edge of a forest, clearing a natural amphitheatre where every leaf is an ear,
and every branch holds a story. You notice a cluster of small, feathered creatures huddled together in a spiral on the forest floor. They look like Anchiornis early birds, or very bird-like dinos, depending on how you draw the lines. They're asleep, all of them, and they're making sounds. Not just snores, though, there's plenty of those. There are chirps, short, breathy calls, some of them rhythmic, others like question marks whispered into the dark. You tilt your head. Could dinosaurs have communicated in their sleep? It's not as ridiculous as it sounds. Odd fact, many modern birds, especially parrots and songbirds, vocalize while asleep. Scientists believe this may be part of memory consolidation, like the brain replaying melodies during REM. Some even practice songs in their dreams. So now imagine a world before language, before lullabies, but not before communication. Maybe these creatures dreamed in sound. Maybe their vocal cords twitched as their minds ran drills for dawn's conversations, practice squawks, rehearsal calls. Scientists still debate whether non-human animals dream in sensory detail, smells, sounds, touch. But if birds do, and if dinosaurs were their ancestors, then it's entirely possible these ancient sleepers are composing the first lullabies without even knowing it. You stand and walk softly around the sleeping spiral. One little dino twitches, another lets out a hiccup-like squeak, then settles again. The calls aren't random, they're patterned. It's like a language being born in real time, or sleep time, which raises a bigger question: did dinosaurs intentionally use sound at night? We know many species had complex vocal tracts. Some had crests that acted as sound chambers. Parasaurolophus, for instance, had a massive hollow crest connected to its nostrils that could produce deep, resonant sounds. Some paleontologists believe it could have been used to communicate over long distances, maybe even in the dark. Imagine lying down to sleep and hearing a slow, echoing moan roll over the horizon, a sleepy "I'm here" from a cousin 2 valleys over. That's not fear, that's comfort. A dinosaur bedtime song. You look up at the trees now swaying slightly in the evening breeze. Leaves flutter like gentle applause. You start to hear the layers of this ancient soundscape like peeling back a symphony. The low bass of the ground trembles. The mid-range rustle of sleeping creatures. The high-pitched tick-tick of insect feet on bark. Even the wind here seems to have rhythm. Not a howl, but a hum. It's hypnotic. And maybe that's the point. There's a theory that natural soundscapes evolved not just by accident, but by function. That organisms, especially those vulnerable during sleep, adapted to fit inside the safe frequencies of their environments. Too loud and you attract predators. Too quiet and you become too noticeable. So maybe the sounds of sleeping dinosaurs weren't just incidental. Maybe they were protective. Noise as camouflage. Noise as reassurance. You lie down again, closing your eyes just enough to blur the shapes above you. One bird-like dino lets out a long warbling exhale that almost sounds like a sigh. You've heard people sigh like that after a long day. You wonder if somewhere deep in its primitive cortex this creature feels something like peace. Or maybe it's just expelling heat. It's hard to know the difference even now. You stretch your arms, yawn, and let your breath join the soundscape. No one notices. That's the beauty of this world. Everything blends. There's no narrator, no spotlight, just the collective breathing of millions of creatures drifting in and out of sleep together. And the music of it all, the natural harmony of things that don't even know they're singing, starts to pull you down again. Not out of exhaustion, but out of invitation. Because this, you realize, is how the planet once whispered itself to sleep. And in this moment, for once in your noisy modern life, you finally know what it means to listen. You're lying still now, not sleeping, studying. The ground beneath you isn't moss or dirt anymore. It's solid, layered, cold. You're on stone flat and pale like a time-locked page from a story that never got told out loud. All around you, imprinted in this ancient slab, are bones. A whole scene frozen. To your left, a protoceratops curled like a cat. Legs tucked in, tail wrapped along its side. Head tilted gently to the earth, as if it had simply dozed off forever. To your right, the outline of another creature, possibly a small theropod. Arms folded, spine arched back unnaturally. You exhale slowly. This doesn't look like a battlefield. It looks like a bedroom, a quiet one. But don't let the peaceful poses fool you. This is where science starts to argue with itself. Because while many fossilized dinosaurs appear to have died, resting curled, crouched, even nestled, others are contorted. Heads thrown back, tails, rigid jaws stretched open. The so-called death pose. You've probably seen it in museums, a dino skeleton arched like it just saw something horrifying in the final second of its life. Like it got electrocuted by extinction. But that classic pose isn't necessarily a scream. It's science. Sort of. Scientists still debate what causes the death pose. One theory points to opisthotonus, a neurological or muscular response, often linked to suffocation or brain trauma. Another theory, post-mortem drying. As tendons shrink, the body naturally contracts into that haunting shape. But some think it could mean something else. Something about the moment just before death. Or the moment when a creature sick or wounded laid down thinking it might rest and never got up again. You run your hand gently across the edge of the slab. You feel the indent where a foot once pressed into soft mud long before it turned to stone. It's impossibly intimate, like shaking hands with a ghost.
And here's the part that really stirs your mind. Some of the most complete fossil beds we have seem to capture dinosaurs mid-sleep. In nests, with eggs, or with heads tucked in the way birds sleep today. It's as if time just once in a while got very still and left behind a snapshot of bedtime. You think back to the feathered parent from earlier, draped over its nest, like a protective roof. Imagine if a dust storm swept through in a moment of stillness, locking everything in place.
No struggle, no escape, just a final nap. Odd fact, the Yixian Formation in China contains fossils so detailed, scientists have found preserved feathers, stomach contents, and yes, sleeping poses. These aren't skeletons scattered by scavengers. They're composed, arranged by nature itself with a kind of accidental reverence. You imagine lying down like one of them, letting the earth take your shape. A pose you never meant to be permanent, and you wonder how many of these creatures really were sleeping when they died. Was sleep a vulnerable act that ended them? Or were they simply exhausted, wounded, old, and the body chose to rest one last time? There's a strange beauty in it either way, because even if the pose was shaped by death, the stillness remains. The quiet lingers. You look around at this fossil tableau and realize that no one here got a second chance. No dream warnings. No meteor forecast. Just the rhythm of sleep, interrupted. And still they rest. As if their bodies knew somehow that this would be the last place. And maybe in a strange twist of fate, those who died lying down were the ones who got remembered. You shift your weight and lie beside the protoceratops. It's a little like lying beside a stranger in a train station. neither of you going anywhere fast. Both just still. You breathe in. This slab used to be mud. The air used to be thick with moisture. Something hot, maybe volcanic, maybe not washed over this land, sealing in the silence. And now, 70 million years later, you're sleeping next to a story that has no narrator. Only patterns. Bones curled in sleep. Spines locked in tension. Jaws still clenched around ancient air. You close your eyes for a moment, lying motionless. And in that exact second, you realize, even in death, the act of resting leaves behind a shape. Even silence has a posture. And maybe the earth remembers not through sound, but through stillness. So tonight, you'll remember them that way too. Not as monsters or myths, but as sleepers. The night has changed. You feel it instantly, not just in the air, which is still and heavy, like the breath before a scream, but in your bones. Something's coming. Above you, the stars have stopped twinkling. Or maybe they're just hiding. The wind has vanished. The insects are silent. The trees seem to hold their breath. And for the first time in your journey, even the dinosaurs are still. You're not dreaming. Not yet. You're witnessing. A shudder ripples across the forest floor like a heartbeat skipping. Somewhere in the distance, a bright streak tears across the sky, blue, then white, then orange. You know what this is, and you know how it ends. But you're here now, right at the edge of the late Cretaceous. You crouch beside a pond where triceratops drink in silence. They look up as the sky starts to change colours, swirling like oil in water-deep reds and purples, with veins of lightning stitched through them. Above the stars, blur behind a burning line, a meteorite. The one. You close your eyes and wonder how many of them were asleep when it hit. Odd fact, the asteroid that ended the reign of the non-avian dinosaurs likely struck near what is now the Yucatan Peninsula with an energy equivalent to 10 billion Hiroshima bombs. It triggered fires, tsunamis, and a years-long nuclear winter. But the moment of impact, it was instantaneous. Some dinosaurs probably never woke up. Scientists still debate the exact chain of events. How much of the extinction was immediate? How much gradual? Was it the dust cloud blocking out the sun? The temperature plummet? The collapse of plant life? Or was it all of it stacked together in a death spiral that not even evolution could scramble out of? And you wonder not just how they died, but how they dreamed that last night. Did some settle into nests like any other evening, unaware that the stars above them were preparing a final lullaby? Did the world go quiet before it broke? You feel that silence now. Even the Tyrannosaurus, the undisputed thunder lizard of this time and place, stands perfectly still on a hilltop, staring at the horizon, its massive chest barely moving. Its instincts tell it something's wrong, but there's no roar, no stampede, no desperate last charge, just waiting. You watch a few small creatures, feathered, nimble, scramble into burrows. These might be ancestors of birds or early mammals, survivors, sleepers, dreamers who had one more evolutionary trick left. But for the giants, there's no such escape. You sit down beside a palm-like tree and look up. The sky is glowing now brighter than the sun ever dared to be. Not warm scalding. The air vibrates. The pond bubbles. The air tastes like iron and salt and ozone. And then everything moves at once. The light hits. You can't even scream. But just before it does, just before the shockwave turns stone to dust, and silence to ash, you imagine something strange. You imagine the planet falling asleep, the kind of sleep that isn't really death, the kind that says, not now, maybe later. You imagine a blanket of soot wrapping around the earth, a pause button pressed by a cosmic thumb, a darkness so deep and complete that dreams couldn't help but spill into it, a sleep that lasted 6 months, a year, maybe more, a sleep so vast that when the sun finally returned, it didn't recognize the world it warmed. Dinosaurs were gone, but something else had stirred beneath the ash. You reach down and feel the soil beneath you, warm, dry, trembling. There's a sadness to this moment, yes, but there's awe too. Because this isn't just an extinction, it's a reset. Life doesn't sleep forever. Even now you can feel the potential building under the surface, in the tiniest burrow, the smallest egg, the softest feather. You get up slowly, brushing ash from your shoulder. The forest is gone now, smudged out by heat and light and shock. But the memory lingers, not just of death, of rest, of creatures curled in nests, of snores and breath and group naps under stars that wouldn't survive the hour. Even in their end, the dinosaurs left behind the outlines of sleep. And when you look up one last time, you swear the sky is whispering. Not goodbye, just shh. The world is quieter now. Ash has settled. The sky no longer burns, it broods. Everything feels covered in dust, like a forgotten attic. You're standing in the aftermath, but something stubborn still pulses beneath your feet, life. You step carefully across cracked mud remnants of a world once thick with song and movement. What's left now? Small things, strange things, survivors, and rituals. Because even when everything else burns, living things cling to habits, and sleep, despite everything, is one of the oldest. Ahead of you, a river snakes through scorched terrain. It's shallow, the water dark and warm, cluttered with plants trying to be green again. You crouch by the edge and dip your hand in. It smells slightly off. You glance up and see a lumpy shape slip into the water. A crocodilian, or something very much like one, floats with barely a ripple, just eyes above the surface glistening. It doesn't blink. You hold still. The creature eases toward the bank, climbs out slowly, and does something deeply unexpected. It rolls, not just once, several times. And it's not random, it's deliberate. When it stands again, its entire back is smeared in something brown, thick and horrifyingly pungent. Congratulations. You've just witnessed the ancient art of crocodile poop sunscreen. Yes, really. Odd fact, modern crocodiles are known to roll in their own feces and mud, possibly to cool down, deter insects, or even shield from UV rays. In a world without SPF 50, poop was skincare. You gag a little. And then you realize this too is a ritual, a preparation for rest, a way of saying, time to shut down for a bit. Let me cover myself in something unappealing so nothing eats me. Clever. Because when you can't build a bed, sometimes you become one no one wants to sit on. Scientists still debate how much of these behaviors are instinct versus adaptation. Did early reptiles invent bedtime routines, or were they just copying environmental cues? Either way, you begin to spot more of them, creatures performing strange, consistent actions before settling down. A nearby lizard digs a shallow hole, spins once inside, then flattens like a pancake, and vanishes. A bird-like dinosaur plucks 3 identical leaves from the same bush and lays them in a circle before curling into the middle. None of this is for comfort. It's for security. It's bedtime armor. Sleep in the wild is a vulnerable contract. And rituals are the signature at the bottom that say, I've done all I can. You think of your own rituals: brushing teeth, checking the locks, turning the pillow to the cold side. Human things, but not new things. They go deeper than that, much deeper. You lie back on a flat stone and watch a group of lizards slither under a pile of leaves, with a precision that suggests they've done this every night for 200 million years. And suddenly it hits you: some of these behaviors survived extinction. Long after the asteroid, long after the thunder beasts fell silent, the rituals remained, passed down not in words or bones, but in instincts, encoded in nervous systems like lullabies. And now you're seeing their earliest versions. You roll onto your side and pick up a strange feather lying in the dust. It's twisted and scorched, but still soft at the base. Maybe once used for warmth, or signalling, or tucking under a baby dino's snout, or just maybe for comfort, because some creatures needed one last touch before they could sleep. You twirl the feather between your fingers. It's not beautiful, but it's familiar. You think about modern birds fluffing themselves before rest, cats turning in circles, dogs scratching the ground, all of them performing ancient inherited theatre before the curtains of sleep drop. What were your ancestors doing? Not the recent ones, the deep ones, the ones who smeared themselves in mud and curled under leaves and listened to the ground for hints of footsteps before closing their eyes. Because they too had dreams. We can't fossilize behavior easily, but these nightly habits, they're shadows of memory, traces of bedtime repeated until they stuck. And maybe that means sleep isn't just a biological function. It's a story, a ritual performance every single night, passed down across millennia, across extinctions, across fire and ice and meteorite and mutation. And the show always begins the same way: find a spot, make it yours, do something that feels like a shield, then let go. The crocodilian nearby closes its eyes, covered in mud, tucked in by instinct, sleeping like the planet didn't just almost end. You smile. You have your own rituals too. And tonight they include remembering that even crocodile poop once had a bedtime purpose. The sun is just a pale smear behind the clouds when you arrive at the next clearing, and the world feels like it's holding its breath again, but for a different reason this time. Not fear, not aftermath, anticipation. You crouch low, hidden among giant cycads, and peek out into a circle of packed down earth. In the middle, a nest. And not just any nest, this one is enormous. Curled leaves, damp moss, even branches bent into a rim. You count at least a dozen eggs, each the size of a watermelon, dappled with spots warm with life. Hovering just above the clutch is a massive dinosaur, and Maiasaura perhaps. You recognize her from reconstructions: duck-billed, protective all nerves, and patience. Her eyes flick back and forth across the tree line like she expects something to leap out any second. She hasn't slept. You can see it in her movements. She paces around the nest, nudges the eggs with her snout, adjusts. A twig turns in a slow grinding circle, then does it all again. This is a creature in the grip of parental insomnia, and it's not new. It's ancient. Because long before mammals invented cribs and baby monitors, dinosaurs were already running the overnight shift. You lie flat and watch. Odd fact, Maiasaura means good mother lizard, named because fossil sites in Montana revealed not just eggs, but nesting colonies, some with evidence that young dinosaurs stayed in the nest for weeks after hatching. That means care. That means food. That means sacrifice. Scientists still debate just how much parenting different species of dinosaurs offered. but there's increasing evidence that some of them, especially hadrosaurs and bird-like theropods, were deeply invested in their young.
And you know what that means? Less sleep. You see it now in the constant checking the repositioning of her body to shield the eggs from wind. The little bobs of her head, listening, not resting. You almost feel guilty watching her. Because you know this kind of tired. You've been this kind of tired. And if you haven't, someone was for you. Your mind drifts to the universal image, a mother dozing in a chair, head lolling one ear, still tuned to the breath of her baby.
A father pacing a hallway, whispering to a child who won't sleep. Grandparents curled at the edge of a bed, just in case. That's not modern behaviour. That's instinct with a fossil record. You see a flicker of motion behind the mother. Another Myosaura, smaller, likely a juvenile from last season, emerges with a mouthful of greenery. It waddles over drops. The food chirps softly, then collapses in a heap nearby. This one does sleep. The mother doesn't, because there's always someone who stays awake. You glance up. Even the sun looks tired. It filters through layers of haze, barely touching the clearing. The air is thick with humidity and the scent of wet leaves. Somewhere behind you, a tree creaks like an old door. And then crack. Not loud, soft, delicate. You lean forward. One of the eggs is moving. The shell trembles, splits flakes. The mother freezes, not out of panic, out of focus. She turns, leans down, and gently brushes her snout against the opening. A small, wet, impossibly soft beak pokes out. Then a head. Then a mewling, awkward body that doesn't seem to understand gravity yet. It's the sleepiest thing you've ever seen. You expect celebration, some joyful bellow. Instead, the mother just sighs. She gently uses her body to shield the new hatchling, then returns to her watchful rotation now, with one more thing to protect. And still no sleep. You lie there, breath shallow, watching this small miracle unfold, and realize sleep is sometimes a luxury, and sometimes it's a threat. To this, mother sleep would mean risking the eggs, the chick, the next generation. And so she gives it up, temporarily, willingly, all for the chance that someone else gets to sleep safely later. And isn't that the truest shape of love? You feel a rustling beside you.
A small, round-eyed creature, maybe an early mammal, has crept closer to the warmth. Not threatening, just curious. It sniffs the air, then curls up near your foot. Asleep in seconds. You envy it. But you also understand now that sleep is more than biology. It's behaviour. It's strategy. It's a choice sometimes between your needs and someone else's safety. Even 80 million years ago, parents were making that same impossible trade. And right now, one exhausted mother dinosaur is still making it. The sun slips behind the clouds again. A breeze stirs the edges of the nest. The baby makes a chirping sound that sounds suspiciously like a hiccup, and for the briefest of moments, the mother lies down. Just her chest. Just a second. Maybe she dreams. The forest has changed again. It's colder. The sun barely pushes through a sky thick with silver clouds. The wind cuts lower, curling around your ankles like a polite warning. The sounds of big creatures have faded. No thuds, no crashing tails. Just the occasional rustle, subtle and underground. You step lightly across frosted moss, your breath fogging slightly. Even the plants seem unsure about waking up. And then you see it. A hole. Small, oval, fringed with claw marks and lined with something soft. Maybe moss, maybe feathers, maybe both. You crouch beside it, listening. Silence, but not emptiness. Someone's home, and they're not coming out.
You lie down beside the burrow entrance, pressing your cheek to the cold earth. It hums faintly. Something is breathing down there, slow, steady, deep. The rhythm of a creature that isn't just asleep. It's hibernating. Or something like it. Odd fact, in 2004, scientists discovered a fossil of Eryctodromeus, a small burrowing dinosaur, inside its own den. Preserved in a curled position alongside two juveniles, the discovery offered the first direct evidence that some dinosaurs didn't just lie down in the open. They dug homes, they carved bunkers, and they slept in them. Not every dino was towering and exposed. Some especially smaller, warmer-blooded ones sought shelter, and maybe not just for sleep, maybe for hibernation. Scientists still debate whether any dinosaurs underwent true hibernation like modern bears or frogs. But there are clues, growth rings in bones similar to those seen in today's animals that endure seasonal dormancy. Changes in metabolism, fossilized dens in what would have been cold, high-latitude regions. All of it points to this. Some dinosaurs may have disappeared for whole seasons. Not gone, just asleep. You imagine it now, a little dino curled beneath the frostline heartbeat, slowed muscles, slack brain, drifting into a months-long fog. No dreams, no hunger, just stillness. You reach into the burrow's entrance. The air is warmer just inside. You pull your hand back slowly, respectfully. You wouldn't want someone poking you mid-hibernation either. You start to notice more of them. Burrows tucked under fallen logs, under rocks, in hillsides. Some show signs of recent activity: scraped dirt, half-covered holes, the faint scent of life. Others are collapsed, abandoned. Tombs or time capsules, you're not sure. But all of them hint at a behaviour that feels surprisingly familiar: seasonal retreat. Because when the world becomes too much, too cold, too dry, too dark, some creatures don't fight. They fold. They disappear beneath the earth and wait it out. You step over a line of tiny tracks, clawed, precise, vanishing into a hole that's only slightly wider than your wrist. You kneel and peek in, seeing nothing but somehow feeling presence. You lie down beside it, face against the soil. There's something comforting about it. The idea that sleep isn't just a response to exhaustion, but a strategy, a choice. You think of the modern parallels frogs, freezing solid and thawing back to life. Arctic squirrels dropping their body temperature to near death. Even humans, hypothetically, could hibernate if our biology permitted it. And maybe, once long ago, some of us did. You press your ear to the dirt. You swear you can hear something. Not snoring exactly. More like the hush of a dream inside a stone box. A lullaby with no sound. What would it be like to sleep through a season to ignore the snow, the wind, the danger, to give your body over to the world and trust it will still be here when you wake up? Maybe the dinosaurs that survived the longest weren't the biggest or strongest, but the ones that knew when to go underground, when to disappear, when to make sleep an armor, a trick, a hope. You sigh and pull your coat tighter. The cold is real now. Your breath rises like smoke. You watch it swirl, then vanish. And it strikes you in a way hibernation isn't about sleep at all. It's about faith. Faith that the world will warm again, that light will return, that it's worth holding on through the long, dark silence. The burrow beside you is quiet, but it's not empty. Inside, something ancient sleeps, and when it wakes, it won't remember you were here. But you'll remember it, because you just lay beside something that believed in spring before it had a name. You're being watched. At least you think you are. You pause mid-step, glancing around the fern-choked underbrush. Nothing moves. Nothing blinks. But there's a presence here, sharp-focused, and oddly asymmetrical. Then you see it. Perched on a low branch, half in shadow, is a reptilian creature that looks like it's split the difference between a bird and a basilisk. Small greenish with wide eyes. Well, one eye. The other is closed. And not in the peaceful, dreaming way. More like on standby. Welcome to the weird world of unihemispheric slow-wave sleep. A kind of a half-brain napping that modern birds, dolphins, and yes, some reptiles practice. The lizard before you, possibly an ancestor to creatures like Anolis or even earlier, isn't asleep in the usual sense. One hemisphere of its brain is taking a break, the other very much on guard. And now it's your turn to stare, because this is efficient, vigilant, creepy, sure, but genius. It means this little dino lizard can rest without ever truly being unconscious. Odd fact, many species of birds sleep while keeping one eye open, linked directly to one active brain hemisphere. Ducks sleeping in groups often take edge positions and keep their outer eye open. They rotate roles throughout the night like prehistoric security guards. Scientists believe this adaptation could have existed in some small dinosaurs and their descendants. After all, if you're a tasty-sized snack in a predator-rich environment, full-brain sleep is a gamble. You step closer. The lizard blinks once, just the open eye, and shifts slightly. No panic. Just a signal I see you. You pause, then slowly lie down beneath the branch, arms folded behind your head. If it's not going to fully sleep, maybe you won't either. Above the lizard finally closes its second eye. For now. And you realize this is the truest form of compromise. A negotiation between rest and awareness. Between dreaming and surviving. You imagine what that kind of sleep must feel like. Half of you drifting into dreamscapes, the other half perched on the ledge of wakefulness, ready to scream, run, or fight at a moment's notice. No wonder birds twitch so much. You close your eyes just for a second, and you try to imitate it. You imagine only one hemisphere of your brain powering down. Just the half responsible for memory or fear or whatever it is that keeps you tossing and turning at 3 a.m. The rest of you wide awake, alert, not anxious, just ready. It's not comfortable, but maybe it never was meant to be. This isn't bedtime. It's a survival trick that has kept generations of small, vulnerable creatures alive for millions of years. You open one eye, just to see what it feels like. Everything is sharper on this side, brighter, more defined. You don't feel safe. You feel aware. And maybe that's enough. Scientists still debate just how common unihemispheric sleep was in the Mesozoic. But with more and more evidence connecting dinosaurs to birds, and birds to this bizarre sleep habit, the picture becomes clearer. Some ancient sleepers didn't have the luxury of fully letting go. Their rest came with strings attached. Conditions, escape routes, and open eyes. You glance up. The lizard has shifted again. One eye open. Watching the sky now, you follow its gaze. Above you, something glides silent and elegant. A small pterosaur, maybe pterodactylus, drifting like a paper kite between trees. It lands on a branch, folds its wings, and yes, closes one eye. The other stays fixed on the lizard. The lizard doesn't move. For 5 minutes, no one does. It's a silent standoff between two ancient animals who understand one very important thing. Sleep is earned, not guaranteed. You roll onto your side and exhale slowly. You'll never sleep the same way again, because now you know even dreaming comes with terms and conditions. You're not walking anymore. You're being carried, not in arms or claws or by some prehistoric Uber, but by the slow, rolling thunder of a herd of sauropods, those neck as long as a bus, tail as long as your worries, giants who roam the land like living hills. You're lying atop one now, no saddle, just the vast sun-warmed spine of a brontosaurus, its hide leathery and gently swaying with every ponderous step. It's oddly soothing, like riding a boat, a really, really big one with tree trunk legs and no idea you're here. And the weirdest part, you think it might be asleep. Or at least, part of it is. Because here's the mystery when you weigh 30 tons and stretch the length of 3 school buses. How do you sleep? Lie down. Risky. Standing still. Exhausting.
Stopping at all dangerous, especially when predators could be lurking. So some scientists propose a wild idea. Maybe sauropods slept on the move. Odd fact, elephants today can nap while walking using slow-wave sleep cycles, in short bursts while remaining upright. Some only lie down for REM, and only when they feel completely safe. And sauropods were basically giraffes on prehistoric steroids. Scientists still debate whether dinosaurs had similar sleep architecture, but the theory goes something like this. If you're too big to stop and too important to die, you might evolve to sleep one step at a time. You press your ear to the brontosaurus's back. You don't hear snores. You hear a rhythm, slow and massive. Footfalls, breaths, maybe a heartbeat. Or maybe you're hearing the ancient version of cruise control, because the herd around you, at least 6 more sauropods, their necks rising like organic cranes into the morning haze, aren't chatting, grazing or thundering. They're gliding, slowly, methodically, as if walking is a reflex, and their minds are somewhere else entirely. You imagine their brains small but efficient, ticking along like sleep timers, one hemisphere resting, muscles moving from habit, not command. You're riding the sleepwalk of a superorganism, and it's beautiful. Every few minutes, a tail sways. A head dips to brush a tree, then rises again with no urgency. No signal of alertness. Just motion, like a dream on rails. You lie back and close your eyes. The rocking motion is hypnotic, cradle-like. A mobile nap platform powered by evolutionary brilliance. You think of sharks constantly swimming, birds crossing oceans mid-snooze, dolphins navigating with half a brain, and now dinosaurs lumbering across continents with eyelids half lowered. Because sleep doesn't always mean stillness. Sometimes it means efficiency. And if you're big enough, long enough, practiced enough, maybe you learn to blend the two. You sit up just enough to scan the horizon. The landscape unfolds like a slow-motion wave. Ferns, cycads, scattered conifers. Dust swirls at the herd's feet, and smaller creatures scurry away as you pass. A few flying reptiles circle above, scanning for weakness. But there is none, because this herd is unbothered, untouchable, and probably dreaming. You wonder what they dream about. Trees, sunlight, neck scratches, or just the feeling of movement, the rhythm of steps, the breeze against scales, the sense of endless forward motion. Maybe sauropods, unlike their more dramatic cousins, didn't need epic narratives in their sleep. Maybe all they wanted was continuity, a dream that never stopped walking. You watch as one of the sauropods near the front of the line lets out a low, almost subsonic rumble. The rest respond not with sound,
but with subtle shifts in direction, adjusting course without fully waking. It's like sleep talking, but with feet. There's something comforting about it. You, the tiny human, the interloper in this ancient caravan, realize you are now part of a collective nap in motion. And it's the safest you've felt all journey. Because when you walk with giants, even sleeping ones, nothing chases you. You close your eyes again. The sway of the sauropod carries you forward, always forward, through time, through dream. You drift off to the beat of prehistoric footsteps whispering, just a few more steps, then rest. When you open your eyes, the world has changed again. Not the creatures, not the trees, the colours. Everything is glowing, not in the usual golden dreamy way, but in strange electric pulses. Purples that shimmer, blues that hum.
Ferns with outlines that flicker between visibility and invisibility like strobe lights filtered through fog. It's not your eyes, it's the light itself. You've entered the night, and not just any night. A night soaked in ultraviolet. You look up expecting stars. Instead, the sky above you pulses faintly with floating spores, microscopic dust drifting in the humid air, catching the faint glint of a moon that looks like it's wearing sunglasses.
Even the rocks beneath your feet have a faint, oily sheen. And then you see them. Dinosaurs. Small ones. Maybe Sinosauropteryx, cat-sized fluffy with striped tails, and the cocky swagger of something that knows how good it looks in moonlight. Except you can't see them in the usual way. They only appear when the angle is right. When the UV hits them, just so. Their feathers glow. Faint bands of colour patterns that wouldn't register in daylight suddenly blaze like glow-in-the-dark paint. Cheek stripes, belly swirls, a bright eye ring that flashes, then vanishes. It's not decoration, it's communication. Odd fact, many modern birds and reptiles can see ultraviolet wavelengths. It's believed that their prehistoric ancestors could too, which means that to them, night wasn't black, it was patterned, designed, a whole secret visual language written in frequencies you can't see. Scientists still debate how prevalent UV signalling was in the Mesozoic, but in some fossilized feathers, melanosomes, the tiny pigment packets suggest color structures that would have shimmered in UV, not just visible light. You stand perfectly still as two Sinosauropteryx dash past you, chasing something you can't see. They chirp, once flash their tailbands like neon Morse code, then vanish into a cluster of glowing mushrooms. You wonder, were they talking or dreaming? Can a creature trained to navigate by colour dream in colour most of us can't perceive? Do they see in sleep? You walk slowly now, careful not to disturb the fragile glow all around you. Even the tree trunks have patterns, algae or fungus, or ancient chemical symphonies, barely visible until you squint just so. And you start to understand. In this world, darkness isn't the absence of light. It's a different kind of vision. You pause at a stream and notice something moving beneath the surface, a frog-like creature with glistening skin coated in what looks like living ink. Its eyes flash in UV like mirrors. It doesn't blink, just watches. And that's when it dawns on you, to survive here at night, you don't just need to see, you need to glow. And maybe that's what sleep was like for some dinosaurs. Not drifting into silence, but shifting into another light spectrum. A private world of colour-coded messages, ghostly patterns, and half-remembered glimmers. You imagine a dreaming dinosaur tossing in its sleep tail, twitching stripes flickering. Not just muscle memory, but signal to its mate, its offspring, its rivals. A conversation that only happens when the sun is gone. a language that doesn't survive the fossil record. But maybe if you close your eyes and imagine hard enough, you can still see it. Feathers like fireflies, scales like oil slicks, eyes that glint only for those who know how to look. The forest glows like a forgotten nightclub, and you are the only guest who didn't bring the right eyes. But the feeling remains. That strange tingling certainty that everything here is connected through light, you can't quite understand. You lie down on a patch of moss that glows faintly pink under the stars.
Your hand leaves a print, only for a second. Then it vanishes, just like the light, just like the dream. You stare up at the sky and wonder what colours did the last dinosaur see as it closed its eyes. What dreams flickered across its mind? Bright ones, soft ones, ones painted in shades we've never named because maybe dreams like feathers weren't black and white. Maybe they shimmered. Maybe they still do. You're itchy. You're not sure when it started sometime between glowing moss and lizard nap, but now it's undeniable. First your leg, then your arm. Now the middle of your back in that one spot you'll never reach unless your arms spontaneously evolve another joint. You scratch. It helps. Briefly. Then you hear it. A faint buzz. Not the soft, harmonious hum of nighttime insects, but something more insistent. A sound that makes your skin crawl a half second before the bite. You look down. There it is. A prehistoric tick. The size of a pea and the colour of regret. It scurries across your boot and vanishes into the undergrowth like it has a meeting to ruin someone's week. You're not alone. You glance up and see a group of small, downy dinosaurs, maybe Bapiosaurus, huddled together, twitching in their sleep. But not peacefully. Their feet jerk. Their tails flick. One reaches up and scratches at its side with a tiny clawed hand, then immediately sinks back into stillness.
Welcome to the uncomfortable truth of ancient sleep parasites were always there. Odd fact, fossilized amber has preserved prehistoric tick mites and even blood-engorged parasites from the time of dinosaurs. One famous specimen contained a tick locked in resin, still gripping a dinosaur feather. So yes, even majestic movie-worthy dinosaurs had to deal with nighttime itchies. And not just the occasional mosquito. We're talking lice, mites, fleas, possibly even internal parasites that messed with digestion behaviour, and, yes, sleep. Scientists still debate how significantly parasites influenced dinosaur evolution. Did feather preening evolve for display or hygiene? Were sleeping positions selected to minimize exposure? Did certain species avoid specific habitats, not because of predators, but because of bugs? It makes sense. In the wild, where sleep is a dangerous necessity, parasites are the uninvited guests who never stop knocking. You watch as one dinosaur rolls onto its side with a grunt, scratching its thigh against a rock. The movement is automatic, subconscious. They might not be dreaming of bugs, but they're definitely responding to them in their sleep. And you scratch too. It's contagious. Just watching them makes you twitch. There's a theory that persistent itching, especially while falling asleep, is an ancient neurological reflex, a last defense against nocturnal parasites. Before your muscles surrender to REM, your body does a final system check. Any bugs? No. Okay. Good night. And if you fail that check, you're scratching in your sleep. You lie back against a log and listen closely. There it is again, the chorus of nighttime irritations. Rustle, twitch, grumble, scratch. It's oddly comforting, like the prehistoric version of blanket adjustment. You imagine a massive ankylosaurus armoured from head to tail, rolling gently from side to side
on a bed of leaves trying to crush the mites out of its armpits, or a microraptor preening in its sleek beak, twitching through feathers, fighting invisible invaders. Because sleep in this world isn't just about dreams. It's about maintenance. It's about surviving the dark in a body that never quite cooperates. You rub your eyes. You're starting to feel the fuzziness again.
That delicious slide toward unconsciousness. But the scratching won't stop. Not around you, not in you, and not in them. One of the Bapiosaurus wakes with a start. Not alarmed, just irritated. It shifts position, grooms itself with 3 quick pecks, then settles back down. Its eyes flutter closed. Its size long and nasal. You feel a connection to it. 2 creatures separated by 125 million years, and a whole bunch of teeth, united by the same nighttime problem. Parasites.
The tiniest enemies. The most constant. And maybe the reason some dinosaurs evolved feathers, complex grooming behaviours, or even social sleep clusters. Safety in numbers, sure, but maybe also better reach. You roll onto your stomach and finally scratch that spot on your back against the bark. Victory. You exhale. The bugs retreat. Your skin quiets. And so does the forest. Because eventually, even with the itch, even with the twitch, sleep always wins. The scratching fades. The rustling stills. And for one short, sweet moment, the prehistoric world remembers what it's like to just rest. You let yourself fall into it, knowing that you too are just one more sleeper in a long line of itchy, twitchy creatures who fought for peace beneath the stars. You wake to the sound of thunder, but not from the sky. It comes from beneath you. A long distant rumble, like the earth clearing its throat. The ground doesn't shake yet, but the air vibrates in your lungs, in your teeth, in the bones of your spine. You sit up. To the west, the sky is smeared with orange. Not the soft blush of dawn, but the harsh, glowing orange of molten rock. Somewhere beyond the hills, a volcano is alive and breathing. And for some reason, it doesn't feel terrifying. It feels rhythmic, like a drum.
You stand and begin walking, drawn not by curiosity, but by something more ancient. Like your body remembers a time when fire was just part of the bedtime story. Odd fact, in the Mesozoic era, the world was volcanically active in ways we can barely imagine. Super eruptions, lava flows that lasted for years, and giant fissures that split continents like cracked clay. And yet dinosaurs thrived in volcanic regions. Fossil beds from places like Mongolia, Argentina and India show species living right next to active fault lines, often with no signs of panic, until of course everything stopped. But here's the twist. Some of them may have even used volcanic heat to sleep. You hike along a ridge now where steam rises from cracks in the earth. The air smells like sulfur and iron and something warm and wet like a cave exhaling.
You peer over the edge of a plateau and see them a cluster of therizinosaurs, odd, gangly herbivores with enormous claws and feathered bellies napping beside a steaming vent. Not just near it, around it, like kids around a campfire. Their bodies are motionless claws tucked beneath their chins, feathers fluttering slightly in the thermal breeze. You crouch beside them. The heat is real, radiant, soothing. You lean in and close your eyes, and you hear it again. The low rumble.
Not explosive, not violent, just steady, like breathing or purring. You think maybe volcanoes weren't always disasters. Maybe sometimes they were lullabies, Scientists still debate whether dinosaurs used geothermal energy for nesting or warmth, but modern reptiles, including some birds, have been known to lay eggs in warm soils near thermal vents, letting nature do the incubating. Why not sleep there too? You look up. The sky pulses with faint ash. A soft snow of minerals drifts down, catching in your hair, settling on your skin. You rub it between your fingers. It's gritty, not unpleasant. You lie down on a warm patch of rock, mirroring the creatures nearby. They don't stir. One twitches a leg. Another snorts softly. A third lets out a half chirp, half sigh, like it's dreaming of something too lazy to finish. You smile, because if there's one thing dinosaurs never got credit for, it's adaptability. They didn't just survive meteors and parasites and continents breaking apart. They learned to sleep through lava. And maybe you could too. You exhale. The heat wraps around your ribs like a blanket with a heartbeat. You start to drift. And just before your mind lets go, you imagine this. That deep, low rumble isn't a warning. It's a song. A slow, tectonic lullaby written in magma and soot. You wonder if sleep in this world meant trusting the earth itself, trusting that even if everything glowed and smoked and hissed, there would still be a corner of warmth to lie in. A crack in the stone that said, "Rest here. I've got you." You peek at the therizinosaurs one last time. They are dreaming. You're sure of it. Dreaming of ferns and sun and dust baths and days without flies. And if the volcano behind them sighs again, they barely twitch, because they know the rhythm. And when the earth sings, they sleep. You're sitting in a tree now, not a Mesozoic tree, a modern one, ordinary, familiar, oak maybe, or sycamore, and perched on the branch beside you, completely unfazed by your presence, is a bird. Small, round, puffball feathers, head twitching. It peeps once, and then it does something that nearly makes you fall out of the tree. It closes one eye and stays that way, half asleep, half alert. Sound familiar? You've seen this before. You watched it in lizards, in feathered dinosaurs, in half-dreaming crocodilians. You're witnessing the past, wrapped in a down jacket and breakfast crumbs. Because this bird, this is the last dinosaur. Not metaphorically, literally. Odd fact, birds aren't just descended from dinosaurs. They are dinosaurs. Every pigeon, parrot and penguin is part of the lineage that survived the extinction event 66 million years ago. The one lineage that made it across the fire line, and somehow their dreams came with them. You watch as the bird fluffs its feathers, turns in place, and does the classic avian tuckbeak, under wing eyes, shut talons tight around the branch. And yet it still doesn't fall. Because even now, 66 million years later, the sleep of dinosaurs remains functional, practical, precise, partial. Scientists still debate just how much modern bird sleep reflects their ancient ancestry. Do birds still dream of flightless forests, of glowing mushrooms and molten lullabies, of clawed parents and feathered nests? We don't know, but what we do know is this birds sleep like survivors. You look at the bird again. It shifts once more, then opens both eyes. Not suddenly, gradually, like a light fading up on a stage. It chirps, loudly, 2 quick notes. A second later, another bird answers from a branch behind you. Then another, then 3 more. You're in a canopy choir, and every voice in it carries a whisper of deep time. A song written by lungs that once belonged to creatures who shared the sky with the pterosaurs and the ground with teeth. Sleep isn't the only thing that survived. Memory did too, encoded in instinct, in rhythm, in feathers. You think about the dreams they might still carry, not just modern dreams of worms and crumbs and Tuesday afternoon naps, but of ancient heat, of endless migrations, of sleeping beneath supercontinents, of that one night when the world caught fire and didn't come back the same. This bird beside you, it's not dreaming, not right now, but maybe it did earlier. And maybe somewhere deep in its brain, a part of it still remembers what it was like to fall asleep beside a giant, a tail sweeping the ferns, a sky glowing red, a nest full of siblings who won't survive the week, a parent who sleeps with one eye open. You look down at the forest below. So much has changed. The continents, the creatures, the climate. But not sleep. Sleep is the through line, the golden thread. It was there when dinosaurs hatched. It was there when they ruled. And it was there when the last one tucked its beak beneath its wing and refused to vanish completely. You feel your eyelids droop again. The bird peeps once more, then settles. And in that moment, you realize something quietly magnificent. The last dinosaur didn't roar. It yawned. You're back on the ground. You don't remember climbing down from the tree, but here you are, barefoot in dew-covered grass. The sky is beginning to shift no longer, the strange, tinted twilight of the Mesozoic, but something cooler, softer. A hue you can only describe as modern. You blink. Birdsong, yes. But you recognize the pattern now. Familiar sparrows, distant crows, a passing plane. Your body is still heavy with dream, but the world has changed. And then you see it. A footprint. Massive. Three-toed. Pressed into the earth like a seal. It's not fresh, but it hasn't vanished either. You step into it carefully, your heel fitting just inside the rounded back edge, your toes barely reaching the midpoint. It's warm, not from heat, but from memory. And as you stand there surrounded by distant traffic and the smell of cut grass and morning coffee, something strange begins to happen. The earth breathes again. You feel it subtle and vast, not movement, not shaking, just remembering. Because time doesn't move in a straight line when you dream. Sometimes it folds, and you realize you've never really left. The dreams of dinosaurs, the rhythms of sleep, the warmth of feathers, and the glow of volcanic air, they've followed you. Or maybe you followed them. They are part of you now. Odd fact, humans are wired to feel comfort in repetitive sounds, soft vibrations, shared breathing. It soothes our nervous systems, helps us fall asleep. But maybe we inherited more than biology. Maybe we inherited the dream itself. Scientists still debate whether dreams have evolutionary purpose or are just mental static. But if dreams were just junk data, why would every creature from lizards to birds to humans fight to hold on to them? Why would sleep be such a guarded ritual? You look down again at the footprint, and then something shifts. Just beyond the edge of the grass, a shadow, a swaying fern where no fern should be, the faint, familiar rumble of a distant, heavy step. You smile. You know now that the prehistoric world isn't lost. It's asleep, sleeping inside the birdsong, the forest, the memory of footprints that refuse to fade, inside your own breath, inside your dreams. You sit down beside the footprint. The ground is warm beneath you. You lie back, arms folded, eyes half closed. And for the first time all night, or maybe in millions of years, you let yourself wake up slowly. The dreams don't fight you. They just wave goodbye, because they know they'll be back. They always come back. Every time you sleep, every time you let go, Every time you wonder what came before you and what still echoes through the bones of the earth, you take a deep breath, and the last thought before full wakefulness touches you like soft sunlight is this: somewhere a dinosaur is still dreaming, and maybe so are you. So now you lie still. The journey is over, but the rhythm remains deep in your chest, in the soil beneath you, in the air that still hums with forgotten wings and fossil lullabies. You've walked with giants who slept in herds, watched raptors blink in moonlight, curled beside nests, beneath feathers, beneath stars that burned in different skies. You've listened to volcanoes whisper, followed burrowers into the cold dark, and watched the last dinosaur tuck its beak beneath its wing.
And all along, one truth has stayed with you: sleep is ancient. It is more than rest. It is survival, ritual, memory, inheritance, the kind of thing you don't just do, you carry. Inside your dreams are echoes of creatures who knew how to disappear and still remain. Not in words, not in bones, but in rhythm. So tonight, when your eyes grow heavy and your breath deepens and your body curls in that familiar shape, you'll be part of it too. Part of that lineage. Part of the great, breathing, dreaming world that never really stopped. Let the noise fade now. Let the thoughts drift. You're not alone. You never were. You are simply the latest sleeper in a story still being told. Good night, little scientist. Sleep well. The dinosaurs will meet you there. End of script. Good night.